As a kid, have you ever been sick to the point where it's abnormal, like strange, how often and frequently you're sick? Well, if not, then you guys are lucky, because that was kind of the majority of my childhood. Hey, what's going on, geeks? Max the Beast is here, and welcome back to Story Time. This episode, as my little introduction suggests, I'm going to be talking about some stories of when I've been sick, and I mean like deathly ill kind of sick. Like the really bad kind of sick that you see in these like horror stories online. Um, as a kid I was never really a really sickly child, but I was prone to more infection than others, I guess, and that might be considered a sickly child, but I don't really think it is. As like I wasn't always sick, I just got sick once or twice every couple months when I was in kindergarten or so. But and more on that stuff later. But when I did get sick, it was bad and it would incapacitate me for quite a while. And I mean, I haven't really been sick in at least a year, thankfully. But the last time I remember it was bad, and I'll get more on that later. Anyway, let's get into the stories. Our first story takes place when I was 5. I was in kindergarten, and I had just come home from a long day at school. The buses that we had did not have AC on them, and it was about 85 degrees outside, so it was very hot. So when I got off the bus, I was sweating profusely, and I just wanted to go inside and eat some ice cream. I remember I was so tired that I asked my mom to carry me up the driveway, as she would meet me at the bottom of the driveway and we'd walk back up together. Well, I sit down on the couch, and they had these things back then called ice cream dibs. I don't know if they still sell those or not, but they were the frickin' bomb. They were like little bits and pieces of those, of like Klondike bars and stuff. It was really good. And we had a bunch of those, and I really liked them. So I sat down on the couch, and it was my favorite after-school snack. I come home, get some ice cream dibs. And I said, hey, I'd like some ice cream dibs. So I get some, right? I start eating the ice cream dibs, hoping that would help me cool down. But that did nothing. So, that did nothing to really cool me down. Mom takes my temperature, and my head is on fire. She takes my temperature with the thermometer. It's about 99 to 100, which is a small fever to a regular fever. So she sends me to bed. A little while later she comes in, and my fever is still there. So we go over to the doctor's office, see if something's wrong. The doctor is an idiot. She says, oh, don't give him any Motrin or any kind of medicine to help the fever. Let it run its course, which typically would be a good idea, to just let the fever do its thing. But at the same time, the fever at this point was 101, so it's kind of on the bad side. I mean, normally if it was like 99 or just 100 itself, okay, but this was 101, 102, so very abnormal temperatures. So I go back home, and we do not take any kind of medication. Instead, I'm sent back to bed, and the fever's gotten to the point where I'm hallucinating. Okay, I'm seeing stuff that is not there at all. So, my mom comes in to check on me in a bit, a while later, and she puts her hand on my forehead, and she literally recoils her hand because my head is so hot, it's burning her. And like literally, I'm not making that up, and I'm not saying that to say, oh, look at me, I can cause people to be burned or whatever. No, there's something interesting that happened. Also, I hate Wookiees in this game. So, she realizes that something is most definitely wrong. So she takes me to the ER. We go in, and the doctors take my temperature and do some basic tests. You know what they would do at a regular checkup. Things just aren't matching up. And they have no clue what's going on. They think that my condition may have been caused by spinal fluid on, well, my spine that might be messing with my brain. So in order to figure this out, they would have to do a spinal tap, which if you don't know what that is, it's where they take a very long needle and stick it in your back to extract spinal fluid. Keep in mind, I am 5, so this is excruciatingly painful. And it hurt a lot. Well, fortunately, there's nothing going on with spinal fluid impacting my brain or whatever. But on the bad side, that meant that the spinal tap was not only for nothing, but we're still no closer to figuring out what's wrong with my body. So they still think it's something wrong with the brain. They think I've had a heat stroke. Somebody said that perhaps I had like a case of typhoid. Somebody thought I had a form of cancer, which I think is kind of weird because I don't think cancer really gives you fevers. But that's what they assumed. It was weird. But we were no closer to figuring this stuff out. They were given all sorts of diagnoses. And my hallucinations had gotten even worse. I was seeing lots of strange people, talking to them, getting no response, of course, because, they don't exist. I get situated in this quarantine room because they don't know what's wrong with me. Any visitors had to wear protective masks so they would not get infected or get exposed to whatever I had. It was a mess, to say the very least. It was an absolute mess. Like I said, I was in this quarantine room. It was like a little box, pretty much. With Mom, of course, stayed with me through the entire ordeal. And I had an IV in my arm, and there it stayed for a few days. The nurse screwed up and put the IV in incorrectly, causing it to be excruciatingly painful every time I moved my arm. This was wonderful, as you could probably tell. But a few days later, they figure out it's salmonella, which, if you don't know what that is, it's a illness caused by food poisoning, pretty much. It's a foodborne illness caused when meat, more specifically poultry, is not prepared well enough and is mostly uncooked, raw. We had been to O'Charlie's a few days prior to this event. And I was at the stage where I would only eat chicken nuggets. And that's what I had. And apparently, my nuggets were not prepared correctly. Meaning, it was contaminated and infected me. Wonderful. But long story short, I'm okay. They removed the IV a couple days later. I could do a whole story about stupid people in that whole experience. But that's for another time. Maybe episode 11 would be about stupid people. That'd be fun. Anyway, next story. Since the last story was long, I think I'm only going to condense this episode to 2 stories. I think that's fair. So, when I was in 2nd grade, I still had my tonsils and adenoids, which are essentially organs that are just entirely used for attracting disease. I know it seems kind of pointless, but it does help prevent other areas of the body getting sick. So, every 3 weeks or so, however, my tonsils would become infected with a very common childhood disease called tonsillitis. Every 3 weeks or so, I'd be out of school, missing classes because, well, I got the plague. So, my doctor decides, well, this has gone on for quite long enough. You're gonna have a surgery. We're gonna have your tonsils and adenoids removed. Okay then. So I was nervous, of course, about the whole prospect of having somebody cut me open. And I was panicking. I remember the day of the surgery, my mom comes into my room with a goodie bag. Inside the goodie bag is like a pillow pet. Anybody remember those? There's a pillow pet in there. There was a couple DVDs of the Mr. Men Show, Tom and Jerry, the original Teen Titans. And there was a few Star Wars action figures and stuff like, and some candy and stuff like that. It wasn't really a bribe. It's more like, hey, here's a little motivation for you to get through this. She let me keep the pillow pet beforehand, though, so I'd have something to, I don't know, cuddle with, I guess, when I got out of the surgery. Now, I've been briefed by Mom about this, of course, before it all happened, because she had hers out before. She said, now, do not be alarmed if you can't talk when you wake up. Okay? So, I go to the clinic that day. They had the whole building just dedicated to do nothing but surgeries. And it's not even near a hospital. It's just one random building right across from an eye doctor's place. Just for surgeries. Which I thought was kind of cool. But when my heart is pounding out of my chest, I'm nervous. I walk in still cradling my pillow pet. And we sit there for a few minutes, and then a nurse asks us to go back for a little pre-evaluation before the surgery to make sure that all my vitals are okay, that I'm not running any temperatures, or that I don't have to, that I'm not sick, something like that. Well, I was fine. I checked out. My doctor, who was also the surgeon, comes in, and he kind of gives me a little bit briefing. He says, okay, we're going to put this mask on you, and you're going to fall asleep, and you're going to wake up in what feels like a second. And he was right. It literally felt like a second, and I woke up, and I was back to normal. But I remember being being transported back to the operating room on a stretcher. Not a stretcher, one of those rolling things. I don't know what it's called. I'm sorry for sounding so stupidly unprofessional. But I go back in there and they put a mask on me that reminds me from something from Star Wars. Because, you know, like I said earlier, I'm a big Star Wars nerd as a kid. I thought it was like a TIE fighter pilot's helmet. Or like when you're in a Bacta tank. Luke Skywalker, when he was in the Bacta tank, had that mask, that breathing mask on. And I kind of felt like the mask too, that would give me the quote-unquote laughing gas, was like that. So give me something cool to kind of sort of compare my experience to. But I woke up, got sent to the recovery room. There were several people watching Dora, Diego, Curious George, stuff like that on laptops and portable DVD players. And this one kid had to get sent to the ER because he was outright refusing to drink water or anything, meaning he became dehydrated. And that's kind of not good after you just came out of a surgery. I hope the kid was okay. I mean, I didn't really get to see or know what happened to him after all of this, but I'm hoping that he's okay. But in any case, the recovery process after that was meh. Nothing really happened for the first 3 days. I mean, I was surprisingly able to talk. And I was surprised when I woke up and was able to actually form words and say stuff. But after the whole thing, the recovery was pretty much just normal. Nothing really eventful happened. For the first 4 days, it felt like just any other day. Just I had stitches in my throat. And a little bit of pain every time I swallowed, and I couldn't have any solid foods. But on day 5 through the first week or so, to the end of the first week, the scabs that were forming in the back of my throat from where they cut out the tonsils had scabbed, my throat had scabbed over, and the scabs ready to come off, and they were starting to flake out and dripping and just going down my throat. It felt nasty, and I'm gonna spare the more disgusting details so anybody with a light heart, or weak stomach I should say, won't be puking after this, because my goal of this video is not to disgust people. Anyway, so those are my 2 really big times of being sick and recovering from it. I know the second time wasn't really me being sick, but it was more like it was caused by something that it was caused by me being sick that I had to have the surgery. But yeah, let me know what you thought about the stories, guys. All of them are 100% true, or both of them are 100% true. And guys, if you want to see content that is similar to this in the future, be sure to subscribe for future content, guys. And hit the notification bell beside the subscribe button so you'll be notified whenever I upload. Thanks again, guys, for 33 subscribers. You guys are awesome. And have a great remainder of your weekend. As always, Max the Beast is out.